Good morning and welcome to a special holiday edition of Media in the Morning. Today, actually, as a gift, I'll let Matt be the host and I'll be his co-host because he's been wanting to be host so badly these last few episodes. So
it's almost more patronizing, yeah.
Isn't it? Isn't it? It's great. It's like really a gift to myself this way, isn't it?
Gosh, well, I think you've been talking to my wife about gifting. Now, listen, I know we're here to talk about moral rights, and we thought it was appropriate just with the seasonality of it all. Morality being, of course, up top of all of our minds this time of year. But unfortunately, I find Christmas gatherings do tend to get a bit compressed. Lots of family, things get grumpy, things get a little feisty. So if things get a little feisty today, you're just going to have to chalk that up to the holiday spirit. Now, why don't I let you tell the folks at home what moral rights are?
Sure. So moral rights relate to a special right that's contained within the Copyright Act in Canada. And that's really this concept that the artist has this attachment to this creation that it makes. It's a part of them. So, and there's a French expression that I'll let Matt say later because I'll just butcher it. But
well, don't do.
Thank you so much. So that's really what moral rights are about. And there are really three components of moral rights. It's the right for the artist to be attributed to the work. So, if I make a painting, Matt doesn't get to sign it. That the artwork isn't mutilated. So, I sell you a piece of art, you're not going to rip it up right away. And then the third branch is that you have a right that your work isn't associated with an organization or affiliation that you don't necessarily want it affiliated with. The example being, a documentary about the Holocaust not being associated with neo-Nazis. So that sort of, that right there. And so the term of the moral rights is the length of the copyright. So you have it for few decades, and so they're connected, but they're separate rights. So that's what moral rights are. And Matt, what's the key case in Canada? It's very on point for our holiday episode about moral rights.
Sure. So just over there at the Eaton Centre in Toronto, a famous artist, Michael Snow's got an installation of a bunch of Canada geese hanging from the ceiling. It was quite beautiful, actually. And a number of years ago, the owners of the mall determined that those geese would look really great with seasonal red ribbons tied around their neck. I think that's a pretty innocent thing to do. Malls are always dressing themselves up with all kinds of Christmas things and holiday things. So anyway, Mr. Snow didn't like that, and he went to court to have those ribbons removed, and he felt it interfered with the quality of the work he created, and it was successful. So what that tells us is, certainly in some contexts where you've got a piece of art that's being displayed, don't change it. Don't change it. That's unless you've got something called a moral rights waiver. You could purchase your work, you could hire someone to make something for you, and get an assignment of the copyright and get a waiver of the moral rights, and then you can do whatever you want. You could dress it up and change it, and it becomes your right at that point in time. Now, so just for context, this is a bit of a unique right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty unique to Canada, and it goes to the fact that we have the French and the English laws coming together in the formulation of copyright law, but you don't have the same sort of moral rights in a lot of other jurisdictions, including the US. So when you're dealing with works, especially in Canada, you want to make sure that you get that moral rights waiver if you intend on doing anything with it beyond the obvious immediate use of just displaying it in your house or your office. And we keep on saying the word waiver, and that's because moral rights cannot be assigned. Unlike a copyright assignment where here's my piece of art, I assign it to you.
I could go trash it freely.
Exactly.
I've seen some of her.
But you couldn't if I didn't waive the moral rights in your favor, because that would be the mutilation of my work. So you're not really getting 100% of the work with an assignment of the copyright. You actually have to waive the moral rights in favor of purchaser.
Now, what happens if I buy a work in the United States from a United States artist and I come up to Canada and then I start deciding I want to get messy with it and change it and you do harm to the art? Do those moral rights arise when I cross the border?
I would say so, because an art is created anywhere, and I could sue you.
So the Berne Convention. Maybe.
Exactly. I could sue you for copyright infringement. If I'm an American, I make a piece of art, you infringe it in Canada, I can sue you for infringement in Canada. If you mutilate it, you distort it, you put somebody else's name on it, I could also sue you for moral rights infringement in Canada, because that's where the act actually arose and that's where those rights are created. So we're talking a lot about it, moral rights, but are the damages so bad, Matt, in Canada? I know we had that case where there was, I think the highest I've seen is $10,000 awarded for moral rights infringement in Canada. So that's not too high, but what else could happen, really? Well,
I think the real remedy you're going to be looking for in moral rights cases or some sort of injunction, injunctive type relief, as you saw in the Snow case, where you may not display this work in a certain way or without attribution or so on. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting is whether or not fair dealing, i.e. the right to use copyright in certain circumstances, which we can talk about another time, but whether that can extend into the realm of moral rights. And I think my friend and I here disagree somewhat about that.
Yeah, I disagree, and this is a much bigger discussion for probably a different day, but fair dealing is an exception to copyright infringement. It's not an exception to fair dealing, to moral rights infringement. So I think just from a statutory basis, you might have some limitations there.
But moral rights come up in the Copyright Act.
Yeah.
They're copyrights.
I know, but then, maybe the drafter should have been a little bit more specific about it.
But you think about it. If I'm taking a film, so I'm taking Star Wars and I want to do a documentary about it, and I'm going to use little bits of it, and it would typically be a fair dealing kind of exception. I'm necessarily playing with the original work. I'm taking parts of it. I may zoom in on a clip. I may put a circle around R2-D2 or something. That would be an infringement of moral rights.
See, that's where I disagree. I don't think that's a moral rights infringement. I think if they, you started then changing the sound, the audio quality, you're distorting it, you're saying that a different studio created the clips, then we're in the context of moral rights infringement. But again, bigger story for a bigger day. So I'm going to cut you off and win the discussion there by saying that that's all the time we have today.
Well, and for the record, I'm now the host of the show, so that's exciting for me. So that's going forward, right? You're not going to take that. You can't take that back.
Well, we'll see what happens in the new year.
I don't know. All right. Well, listen. Have a great holiday. Try not to fight too much, and enjoy your break.
Thanks so much, everyone. Happy holidays. Dentons is a global legal practice providing client services worldwide through its member firms and affiliates. This episode is not designed to provide legal advice, and you should not take or refrain from taking action based on this content. Please see dentons.com for legal notices.